part of this, of course, and we've kind of touched on it throughout the conversation, is technology. So, the conversation always comes back to technology is going to save us. Uh, so I'm curious, what technology is out there that's going to save us?
Well, certainly, when it comes to clean energy, it's dependent on technology, whether it's wind or whether it's geothermal or you can debate nuclear or water. The cost of producing electricity has followed the traditional path of technology innovation, which is that you really get a dramatic, once the units go up and you get to version 2 and 3 and 4 and technology improves, you get a dramatic reduction in the cost of producing electricity to the point where it's competitive today with more traditional fossil fuel. So technology has an incredible role to play, I think, and it's still challenging though. When you look at, for example, wind turbines right now in Europe, they are going to be flat this year, I think, in units over last year, even though the demand is going up. Supply chain shortages are challenging companies in that space to deliver at costs that were, contracted for 2-3 years ago to deliver, in today's dollars, what might be a wind turbine at a loss instead of at profit because of the increase in raw material costs. So there's a lot of cross currents and a lot of puts and takes when it comes to technology and its effectiveness today. But if you look at the longer sort of span of improvements over time, you can absolutely see the improvements. And it's not just in clean tech. I mentioned, educational software is another example in the social space. So we are going to need technology, but certainly it's not a panacea. It's not it's not a rifle shot solution to our issues. We have to have everybody play a role.
Yeah. Well, when Bob mentioned his green car, I was one of the concepts that I think is very fascinating that I believe Tesla has been playing around with is just having solar panels on your car, so your battery's charging while you're driving. Um, I think that's very cool and really good technology that'll help. And perhaps you won't have to stop to recharge. Your battery will just run on your solar panels as you drive.
Yeah, and in Vermont, they use the electric utility uses cars as storage. So you plug your car into the
Reverse.
grid
Yeah.
to charge your car, but you can also use your car's stored electricity to feed the grid back to the utility when the utility needs electricity. So they don't have to build it itself. A bit of a crowdsourcing to electricity storage. So there's a lot of interesting technology out there already.
So technology is a large part of the solutions to all of this, but our dependence on it makes chip shortages really, really a big deal. You start to run out of chips, and you run out of a lot of the things that we take for granted, and then you have problems with the power that's going to drive the technology. And you start to realize your dependence on technology is not necessarily all good. So we need it, but we need to be careful that we don't get ourselves into another set of dependencies that start to backfire on us. There's a lot of talk about AI and blockchain and all of those kinds of things to try to help us to get our heads around better data to address some of these issues. But um, so far, that's a bit of a dream more than a reality.
Yeah, I think Bob and Eric have made this point very astutely that there is a huge potential in technology, especially if we talk about environmental improvements, climate change, waste management. I think where technology can help and where new technologies already have improved things. But since we are talking about this systemic level now here towards the end of our chat, I don't think it will be a technocratic fix. And I think it can go in both direction or in two directions. I think we need a rethink about government and governance and setting new rules for the game for all the players, right? And I think that's a trend we haven't quite discussed, but it's very also important to see in the ESG field that in many areas, what industry is trying to achieve, business sectors, to create rules for the game for every player, because then you get change and then everybody does the same thing. But there's a second aspect. So this would be the upward aspect, or bottom up aspect, if you like. But there's also a top down aspect, and that's, Eric, you mentioned with technology and the way new technologies, especially IT technologies, empower people at the bottom. Yeah, access to information, access to education. The game I am in is changing under our feet, and the pandemic has just pulled the rug a little bit, and we are just realizing that maybe what we think education is at a university isn't what it really is for most of the 9 billion people on the planet, right? And so this will be great and exciting, and I think we will see a lot of change with empowerment at the bottom. And I think technology, yes, is a game changer. We see that already, and there's, I think, hope that technology will do this. But I don't think it will be a technocratic fix. It's about rules and about the way we agree to deal with each other as humans. And that's where it all comes down at the end of the day.
Behavior
I think.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you brought up some very good points, Dirk, and we are going to need a whole episode to dig into some of those topics.